Welcome to another brilliant edition of Plank of the Week. We are here in our resplendent studio. I have the Plank here with me, and I have my two glamorous assistants to my left, Mr. Kevin O'Sullivan, Ms. Dawn Neesom. You might notice, those of you who are a bit eagle-eyed, that we've got a slight change in the set this week, because last week we had some tape, you might remember, running down the side of this little...
big changes this week. We haven't got
changes.
tape.
We've taken the tape off, right? We're going bareback, I think they call it, don't they, in the business?
I'm not sure
No
you can
tape.
say that.
I think you can. We don't need any tape anymore. We're free. We've just got these little dividers between us so we don't in any way give ourselves any kind of problem. Now, Kevin is, I think, going to kick us off this week with his first Plank nomination.
My nomination for Plank of the Week, the first nomination, is Michael Gove.
Oh, yes.
The
First
Tory
time this year,
cabinet parrot, who is responsible for our continued lockdowns because he's obsessed with them. But what I took particular exception to was his attack last week on that excellent MP, Sir Desmond Swayne,
Yes.
the Tory backbencher.
Very popular on talk radio, Sir Desmond, isn't it?
Suddenly, out of nowhere, for no apparent reason, Michael Gove went onto television and said Sir Desmond must apologise for remarks he made 3 months ago, back in November, where he suggested that death rates, NHS statistics were being manipulated. Now, whether or not that's correct, I think is beside the point. We're talking about an MP exercising his freedom of speech. The point is, this is a Tory government that this year, at long last, rather late in the day, has declared war on wokery, on the pernicious advance and rise of woke culture, and also particularly on the vile practice of cancel culture.
Yeah.
What Michael Gove is doing to Sir Desmond Swayne, because Sir Desmond has the temerity to challenge government policy, to say perhaps they are not going the right way about tackling the virus, perhaps lockdowns are not the answer. What Michael Gove is trying to do for having the temerity to say that is to cancel him. It's going through the whole process. First, you must apologise.
Yeah.
You must atone for your sins in public, and then we will get round to punishing you.
And then after that, we'll make sure you never say anything like that ever again.
Exactly. How is the Tory party going to tackle and get rid us of the scourge of cancel culture when they're practising it themselves? Michael Gove, start acting like a conservative. Start protecting freedom of speech and stop practising cancel culture. And for not doing all three of those things, you are Plank of the Week.
Dawn, who's your number one?
Right, okay, well, 2 words. Sadiq Khan, give him the blank now.
Right, we're off.
That's it, bye.
Sadiq Khan.
Let's go to the pub. Oh, we can't go
This
to
is
the
a
pub.
bloke, by the way, who even when he's not nominated, somehow manages to stay in the top 10.
I so try to avoid it. I so try to come up with someone different. Any case, however, Sadiq this week has been boasting about commissioning a special report into how COVID-19 has been devastating for London's economy.
Really?
Retail,
Has
hospitality, culture, and nighttime industries hit the hardest.
Really?
Well, wait a minute, hold
Yeah.
on, just walk through the city, mate. He evidently used taxpayers' money to pay for a group of researchers to discover that he has screwed London over in a right royal style.
This is the same guy who paid millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds to rip up the streets to put in a load of illegal cycle lanes.
And congestion charge 7 days a week
And
to
these
stop people
low
going to
traffic
work.
neighbourhoods, right?
And what's
Which are now
happened about
causing... Well, the judges have said
unlawful.
that it's unlawful. They've said at TfL, Transport for London, they're not going to rip up the cycle lanes yet because they're appealing. So I don't mean that means they look nice. I mean, they're
it's not
appealing the
very
case.
appealing at all.
And so they're going to try and drag it out for as long as possible, obviously. But like Kensington High Street, which had to reverse its decision and pull them up, you know, all of them that have been put in are put in unlawfully, as are these low traffic neighbourhoods, which are causing
all over the
massive
country.
problems.
All over the country.
Look, I
massive
know this is
problems.
quite London-centric, but a lot of the cities in this country have a similar problem with mayors. Sadiq just seems to be head and shoulders, not literally, obviously,
He's the
tiny,
figurehead.
above all of them. I mean, you know, it's like now begging for more money from the government.
That's all he does.
Exactly. When he's the one, this isn't COVID destroying the city.
No.
This is actually his decisions destroying our city.
No,
And
this
he
is the
was
same
one-
guy who refused to give proper protection to bus drivers,
Yep.
people that worked on the
Yep,
trains.
absolutely.
Then told everybody not to travel on the trains.
Yep.
Then told everybody to travel on the trains.
Yeah.
Then told them not to travel
And
on the
at the
trains.
same
again.
time as cutting the number of services down so people were crowded together
Yeah.
on the trains, and has bankrupted them as
Right.
well at the same time. As you said, you know, the traffic regulations now 7 days a week. if you're vulnerable,
And until 10 o'clock at night as
at
well.
10 o'clock at night, and if you're vulnerable travelling on public transport, you need to drive
Yeah.
into your work
Yeah.
if you still have to go to work, and you can't do that because you can't afford to now. He's turned London into a ghost town.
He has.
And the fact that he didn't realise that he'd done that, I mean, that makes him a
Also,
far-
was he not a great supporter of the curfew as well, the
He
10
was a-
o'clock
Mike,
shutting down
he-
of pubs when they were actually open?
vociferously argued against having any establishments open, any bars, any clubs, anything. Shut them down, stay home,
Yeah.
save lives, you're killing nurses on the front line, etc., etc. And then he goes, oh no, I really feel for the hospitality industry. What have we done? It's like, what have you done, mate?
Right. Now, I'm going to follow on from Kevin's remarks about Desmond Swayne, because the original reason for putting Angela Rayner on this list was, for me, the fact that she had attacked Desmond Swayne, because she'd found some far-right group, supposedly, that he'd been talking to, which turned out not to be a far-right group. It just turned out to be a group of people who didn't agree with Angela Rayner about very much. And he said, as he told Julia Hartley-Brewer, he didn't say anything to anyone that he hadn't said in the House of Commons, right?
Yeah.
But all of that aside, because you've already explained that situation, what was actually worse for me was the release of the figures this week of the front bench of the Labour Party and their expenses claims, not least people like Angela Rayner, who apparently claimed £30,952.98, which is all very well. I don't object to
Did
people
she travel
claiming
among the
expenses,
people, or did she
but
go in the posh
travelled,
class?
including 1,600 quid on 23 first-class railway tickets.
Why
Now,
first class?
Why do they have to go first class?
well, they don't. They really don't. And as somebody pointed out to me, if you're travelling currently on trains, there's
They're
hardly anybody on
empty.
them. So if you're going to tell me you need to go into first class to stop being, harassed by the public, well then, excuse me, there aren't any members of the public on the
You
bleeding
can
train.
sit wherever you want, and who's
Yeah.
going to harass her in any case?
I mean, they should really have a rule, I think. I mean, I'm quite happy for people to have expenses, even though I'm not allowed to have them anymore as a single, independent company. That you can barely charge anything
No,
now
I know,
to the
absolutely,
tax man,
yeah.
right? But you would think, being such a socialist, would one want to travel second class, because she shouldn't surely want to travel with the elite in first class. Also, how about they have this system in Parliament where you pay for a second class ticket and you cover that if you're the Parliamentary Expenses Board, and if you want to jump up to first class, you pay the rest.
Top it up, yeah.
Because the other thing was, Lisa Nandy, right, she paid £20 for hand sanitizer
You can
and
buy your own
charged that.
hand sanitizer.
She charged that. It gets worse. Lucy Powell charged her television licence to the taxpayer. So these are the same people who are more than happy to let it become a fact that if you're older than 65, you still have to pay for your licence, and in fact, or 75, isn't it?
75.
And in fact, if you don't pay it, you might have to go to prison, right? She's charging the taxpayer for her television licence.
So hold on, my mum, 75 plus, is going to pay for her TV licence because she's a taxpayer and she's claiming it. No.
Yes, I mean, it is
I would
beggars
use a
belief.
very rude word, but I'm not
It
going
beggars
to.
belief. And so, I mean, I could have put the entire front bench of the Labour Party in there. And it's true to say that Tories also have been doing some bad charging on their expenses, but they're not the ones making out that the rich are all bad.
they're not the champagne socialists,
The
are
champagne
they?
socialists, like Angela Rayner, famously, as I said earlier, calling Tory MPs scum in the House of Commons, for which she was roundly criticised. I mean, the woman is just a total and utter hypocrite to
She's
me.
a first-class hypocrite.
She's a first-class hypocrite, very good, and a first-class plank. So there you go, Angela. And she's also blocked me on Twitter, which I think, as the deputy leader of a political party in this country,
You should not, absolutely.
is not
no,
something
not
that you
blocking
should be
journalists
doing.
is not a good look.
I mean, if she had any brains, she would have muted me, then I would never have known. Because that's
Yeah,
what I
well,
think
exactly.
David Lammy's done, because he never answers any of my tweets, but he
First
hasn't blocked me.
class. What is she? This is a first class scrounger. Labour dep is not the ticket.
Very good. Well done. Who's your second one, Kevin?
My second one is Nicola Sturgeon, for a variety of reasons, though, but mainly her disgraceful support of the EU against the interests of Britain during the vaccine debacle, as Ursula von der Leyen and her hopeless,
We like that one.
and her hopeless Brussels acolytes made a complete mess of the vaccine rollout in Europe. They failed to order any. And when it was revealed that we'd ordered many millions and the Europeans could do nothing but watch the vaccines going out of European factories, making their way for Britain, what did von der Leyen do? She tried to stop it. She tried to stop 3.5 million vaccines that were on their way to Britain to inoculate the old and the vulnerable. And she also just closed down the Irish border. And what did Nicola Sturgeon do throughout this? She supported not the British, not actually Scottish old and vulnerable people who would have benefited from these 3.5 million vaccines, but she supported the people who were trying to stop them getting here. And what did she do? As it soon swiftly emerged that the EU was in the wrong, she went all quiet. What did she say at the outset? She said, I'm going to publish the contract between AstraZeneca and the British government to prove that Boris is in the wrong here. And van der Leyen said exactly the same. It must be the case that Nicola Sturgeon did not read that contract.
It must be the case.
Because that contract utterly and completely exonerated AstraZeneca. What that contract effectively said was, well, you've come to us at least 3 months too late, but certainly we will do our very best to get as many vaccines to you as we can under the circumstances because you were so late.
Yeah. Hasn't it come to something, by the way, when you look at two big organisations, one's political, one's commercial, and it's the political one that's doing all the slithering around and the telling of falsehoods, when normally you'd expect the kind of commercial sector to be the one sort of not exactly playing honestly.
Absolutely.
It's incredible, isn't it?
So Nicola never published that contract because it would have exposed the EU as being in the wrong and not Britain. And then she went to ground. Didn't really hear from her for days on end.
Yeah.
I still think she must, as a matter of urgency, clarify her position. Did she support the bid by Ursula von der Leyen and the European Commission to block the transport of 3.5 million vaccines destined not only for British, Scottish people, old and the vulnerable, but the old and the vulnerable in Scotland? Did she try and block that? Was she in favour of the EU doing that at the expense of poor, old and vulnerable people in Scotland?
Well, she's come out in sympathy, hasn't she? Because Scottish vaccine rollout has slumped to its lowest number of daily jabs. Yeah. And this is also the woman, a pound shop Jimmy Cranky, basically, we're talking about. She's actually overseen the highest alcohol-related death rate in Scotland for years. Right. She's also seen, I mean, I think Edinburgh is the capital in Europe for drugs deaths. Yeah. I mean, she's not got much to shout about.
She's put the price of booze up.
Well, yeah,
she raised the price of every unit of booze to stop people drinking, so they return to taking drugs.
Well, exactly. I mean, this woman has nothing to shout about. I mean, she talks utter toss-ups the whole time.
Education system is rubbish.
And you know, and then that, you know, going back to the very start of this pandemic, that Nike conference that was in Edinburgh as well, and she covered
which
that
she didn't
up.
tell anybody about.
That's the other thing.
That's the other thing. There's cover-up written all over the Scottish political system because, unfortunately, the sort of the people who run the media in Scotland are all very much in the SNP's pocket, and it seems as though nobody is willing to criticise them at all.
I do not understand. She is her attitude to the whole vaccine thing, as Kev has just said, is actually killing Scottish vulnerable people. How can they not see through this woman?
Outrageous.
And if you talk about the government in Westminster being more than enthusiastic about kind of continuing with lockdowns and things, I mean, it's much worse in Scotland because there are people up there. Don't forget, she's the woman who banned singing in the pub. Right? When the pubs were open, you weren't allowed to listen to music and you weren't allowed to talk loudly because that's why they banned it. They said, well, if there's music playing, you'll be talking more loudly, spreading more of the COVID.
Yeah, and then she was pictured standing in the pub without a mask on talking to people.
I know. It is extraordinary. Absolutely
Stupid.
extraordinary.
By the way, if I was Boris, I'd say to her, you want Indie Ref 2? Have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Go on, go right ahead. She'd lose.
Yeah, I wonder if that's true.
She knows it.
They've just announced, by the way, that today they're going to start doing managed quarantine for all travellers, and I bet you any money, I haven't seen the detail of this, but I bet you any money there'll be quarantine if you come from England. I bet
of course there will, absolutely. Just get the wall up, love. Do us all a favour.
Okay, Dawn, who's your second one?
Oh gosh, right, okay. Well, I
Comes
know.
around
look,
fast.
I know. This is going to be another shocker for people, but it's Prince Harry. But with a bit of help from Meghan, I mean, they've both done separate things this week.
Well, do you know? Did you see that story about the name changes?
Well, this is the thing.
Names. So who has that many names?
Well, I mean, you know, but this is. I'm going to go with Harry, I think, and this is for his over-egging. Recent libel action against the Mail on Sunday. Basically, took the Mail on Sunday to court because they claimed that he wrongly claimed that he had turned his back on the Royal Marines, which, you know, you moved to. I mean, he kind of Marines from California, you know, obviously, but wrongly claimed. So he sued them, libel, and it has been settled. But the judge has been so harsh on Harry, correctly so. I mean, the judge literally called him a plank.
And this is the bit what we don't hear quite often on the news because the news kind of cuts it down
Yes,
and goes,
exactly.
Prince Harry's won substantial damages from the Mail on Sunday. Everybody assumes
awful,
then the Mail on
nasty
Sunday,
newspapers.
horrible, bad, nasty papers.
Yeah, well, in any case, the judge goes, well, your lawyers have manifestly disproportionate charged you £35,000. So basically, the judge ordered the newspapers should only pay £2,500.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
So that would be considered by some in the legal profession to not be a big win.
It's not a big win in any way, shape or form, and the Ginger Whinger has been left to pay the remaining £32,500 bill.
Meghan won't be happy.
Meghan will not be happy.
Back in the doghouse.
Right rollicking when he goes home, won't he?
He'll have to make another sitcom for Netflix. There'll be a laugh for decades.
Oh, another one of those
Actually,
amazing Spotify podcasts.
They've got a great sense of humour, Harry and Meghan.
Actually,
It'll be really funny, their comedy show.
Thinking about it, we should have a whip round because I just can't bear any
I
more
know.
broadcasts from Harry
Well,
and
listen,
Meghan.
how much is their legal bill going to be by the end of this year? Because by the time they finish paying off all
Quite a
these legal
few.
teams that they've got,
Yeah.
I mean, blimey, you're talking in the millions, aren't
Yeah,
you?
but the Meghan line was quite good as well, wasn't it? It was like, the birth certificate
Yes.
for Archie. is
She's
the
taken
kid's name.
Rachel as her name out of the proceedings. Is that what? Because she's,
yeah,
is she
and
somehow?
put Her Royal Highness in
She
it
wants to
because
swap it for Duchess.
yeah, it was a royal protocol, and Buckingham Palace by someone who's very close to them, i.e. probably the Queen on the phone, saying, no, nothing to do with us.
Yes.
We didn't do that. It's Kensington
Well, listen, I
Palace did
spoke
that.
to Angela Levin about this on Monday, and she was saying she actually put a call into the palace to say, have you authorised this? And they said, oh, you'll have to talk to their people.
Yeah.
They hadn't
Nothing
authorised
to do
it
with this
at
at
all.
all.
Nothing
So it's
to do
them.
with it.
Aren't they
Absolutely.
today saying that she's not actually telling the truth about
Well,
the
I mean, clearly. I mean, he's now also calling himself on the newly named birth document. For some reason, they're not calling it a birth certificate. I don't know what that means. I don't know whether it's not a birth certificate.
Maybe the kid isn't even real. We haven't seen it, have we?
Well, I mean-
we've seen a toe and a nose.
There's your first conspiracy theory. Obviously, for purposes of the legal people,
Phantom
we don't want to
baby.
be sued by Meghan and Harry. So I'm not saying that.
I've only seen a toe and a nose. What
yeah,
are you
well, I
seeing?
mean, it's a
You may think they've got a phantom baby, but I couldn't possibly comment.
He hasn't got any friends, the Phantom Baby. Anyway,
North Harry.
but the thing is, he's calling himself. He's changed it to His Royal Highness, right? Now, excuse me.
I thought
he didn't want to be in the royal family. You can't go around calling yourself His Royal Highness if you're not in the royal family.
You're not in the royal
I mean,
family.
I might as well change my name to His Royal Highness Mike Graham, and you'd all have to call me that, wouldn't you?
Well,
No,
No.
no.
if you're in the royal family, all you've got to do is hang on to those titles. You know?
Yes.
They mean a lot to them. The rest of us don't even understand
I
what the hell they
know,
are.
I know, absolutely bizarre.
In any case,
But-
His Royal Highness
so
is
is
coming
it,
over
is
in
it,
some
so is
way.
it, yeah, Harry. So it's Harry on his own, is it?
Harry, yeah.
Okay, excellent stuff.
Grateful for small mercies.
Yes. Now I'm going to introduce somebody who's never been in Plank of the Week before
No.
and who may never ever be in it again. It's an ordinary member of the British public. It's a woman in Scotland by the name of Sophia Collins, right? Now,
Hi,
you've
Sophia.
probably never heard of her, but you will hear of her probably for the next few days because you know how Twitter is. It tends to find people to have a little storm about. She created a Twitter storm by putting out the most ridiculous tweet I think I've seen in a long time. It's a picture of the inside of her fridge, right? In which she's holding one
What
block.
point does that sound like a good idea?
One block of butter, right? And in the background, you can see a second block of butter and some other items on a shelf. And the butter itself is salted British butter. It's got a Union Jack on it, sold in Morrison's, right?
Okay.
She says this: I don't actually need my fridge to be a UKIP advert. Thanks, Morrison's. Now,
Salted butter. How lower middle class of her.
I know, absolutely. Now, call me old-fashioned. I did a bit of research around this particular
You
butter
looked into
issue.
butter.
I did. And do you know that Tesco's also have a British butter, which also has a Union Jack on it?
Okay.
And the ones that are sold
Quite
in
a good way
Aldi.
of denoting British,
Well,
isn't it?
I think,
A
yeah.
Union
I think,
Jack,
yeah.
yeah.
One of the reasons it's being done at the moment is because people are trying to promote British farming, which you
Yeah.
think if you were British you might quite like. But of course, here's the clue: because she lives in Edinburgh, so
Right.
she doesn't presumably consider herself to be British. She rather instead considers herself to be Scottish and possibly European.
But the saltaire is part of the Union flag,
It
isn't
is.
it? It's the sort of the blue bit,
It
I
is.
thought.
So when was the last time you went into a shop that only had one brand of butter?
Well,
Yeah, well, she obviously brought it. This
there
was
are
her
places in
fridge.
Borough Market, funnily enough, which only sell one brand of butter from a particular farm.
Well, my point is if she doesn't like butter with a
Yeah.
Union Jack on it, get another butter.
Yes.
Why did she buy it?
Well, why did she
Yeah.
buy it? Indeed, I mean,
Put it in her fridge and make
if
a
it's in
thing
her
about
fridge,
it.
and as some people have pointed out, why does she have 2 packets of it?
Yeah.
I mean, who buys 2 packets of
Maybe
butter?
it was 2 for the price of 1, so you get doubly offended.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
She later put out some tweet about crisps being evil. So I'm not quite sure where she's coming from, this woman. But she's going to disappear up her own backside like the old dodo bird pretty soon because she's now. I can't even see her original
I'm sure
tweet.
she's probably a lovely lady. Maybe she's just
I
a bit
don't think
bored.
so.
We're all locked down. I mean, you've got to look in the fridge and create some fun with
I'm
her.
sure she's not a lovely lady.
Is it possible that there's somebody trolling her in the Morrisons in Edinburgh? So whenever she orders butter, they just send her the British one. Just send her the other one. Don't worry about that.
There's a very nice. I've got a nice Irish one at home actually.
Kerrygold. Yeah,
it's lovely, very
Other
nice,
butters
yeah.
are also available.
Yeah.
I like Anchor actually.
That's a surprise.
Do you like Anchor?
I do. Anchor spreadable.
Stop.
You see, that's very low.
Anchor spreadable. Also because it comes from Wiltshire,
I'm
where
a
I used to
Lurpak
live.
man.
Are you?
Lurpak, yeah.
Lurpak's foreign, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, you
I
see.
quite like President. That's a French one.
Okay.
That's a bit.
I still see
traitor
myself
though.
as a European.
I didn't know this was going to turn into another artsy show. God's sake. I mean, I'm trying to present this woman as a bit of a crazy woman. Anyway, she's my second nomination. Sophia Collins, welcome to Plank of the Week.
Well done,
Kevin,
Sophia.
who's your third?
Well, another regular and an old favourite, Sir Keir Starmer.
Oh, yes.
I always think he's the kind of guy, you know, in newspapers where they put quotation marks around the Sir. He really deserves it, doesn't he? Sir Keir Starmer.
I wonder if we could take that away. Should there not be? Do you know how they have that?
Denite him.
Yeah. Do you know then they have the sort of the birthday honours list? Should
Yeah.
you not be able to have some that you can say you can take 5 away?
Yeah.
Just get rid of 5.
Great idea.
I think that's a good
We
idea.
know who to come to first, Mr. Starmer.
Yeah.
No, the reason I've chosen him is because this incessant Labour approach to the coronavirus problem. And it is basically this. As we were saying earlier, if you want proper opposition to the government's policies, you have to look to the government backbenches, the brave Tory MPs who are questioning whether or not lockdowns are the right way forward, who are worried about the ramifications and the terrible effects of lockdowns in terms of employment, schools, health, etc. That's where the opposition is coming from. Labour just go, oh, Boris Johnson, he's an Eton snob and he's terrible, but we'll do everything he says. We'll back everything he does.
Right.
But what the nuance that really infuriates me about Starmer, he basically says, do everything that Boris said, only if we did it, we do it more.
Yes.
It's anything Boris can do, we could do better.
Yes.
Could have,
So Boris is now, you know, I would tend to agree, locking down the borders rather too late, but at least he's doing it now.
Yeah, but they're saying he's not doing it quickly
He's not
enough.
doing enough.
Yeah.
No, he's not doing it
enough.
quickly
Well,
enough.
but I mean,
Keir wants to close down our borders to the whole world.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got this kind of idea now, because Australia closed its borders. There's this sort of ludicrous idea: if you close your borders, you will beat COVID.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with
Nobody
it.
goes
Well,
to
no,
Australia.
Won't beat it.
Nobody goes
Well,
there.
it's a completely different society,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, that's sort of like, you know, one security guard who was working in one of the quarantine hotels happened to be test positive. I wonder how he got it.
Was that the one that was doing all the?
Yeah, probably. And they've shut the whole city down because
investigating?
one person.
Yeah. But that's what they do. I mean, I was talking to somebody in the office the other day who's got friends there, and they had 3 cases, I think, in somewhere like Brisbane, and shut the whole city.
Yeah.
Completely.
Perth,
I mean,
Perth is shut down because one milkman got it.
yeah.
One.
Right.
One. They
So,
were
I mean, those
completely
comparisons are
Milk, they're
pointless.
like-
But
it's all
also,
that
the other
buffalo
thing
deliver.
with old Keir Starmer, right, and he got well taken to task, I think, last week at Prime Minister's Questions, because Boris, whenever he asked him a straight question, he could never answer it, because he doesn't have actually opinions of his own. When he was asked, can you tell us whether you think schools are safe? He wouldn't say.
No.
Because he's upset that you might worry the unions by
Well, he's
saying the wrong
terrified
thing.
of upsetting the unions,
Yeah.
isn't he? That's his problem.
Right.
I mean, and that's
I
why.
mean, all you got to do to beat him is ask him a straight question.
yeah, and he
and
won't
people go
answer.
on-
He's a barrister.
And people go on about, oh, you know, what a great improvement on Jeremy Corbyn he is.
Well, that's true.
Really, that is true.
You know, my dog would be an improvement on Jeremy Corbyn. Actually, he'd be a lot better. He'd be an improvement on Keir Starmer.
He would actually, yeah.
But Starmer is quite a remarkable feat that he is actually behind Boris
It is.
Johnson in the polls.
Yeah,
Well, how is that even
Why are,
absolutely,
possible?
I know.
why are Labour behind the Tories?
Because they're
How can
useless.
you do that? No.
They're completely
No.
useless.
Yeah.
I
And,
mean,
and it's because of this that their only policy is to call Boris some names, say he was too late to start the lockdowns when he was totally. It was totally excusable that he dragged his heels a bit because he was.
Yeah, but Starmer's changed his
staring into
position.
doing something absolutely unprecedented.
but also he's changed his position about
Yeah,
10
yeah.
times, Starmer.
And now, you know, everything Boris says, they say, oh, well, we agree with it, only we do it more.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all the way through. We'd have done it bigger, better, faster,
Right.
harder.
Yeah.
And also, when you look at Starmer and you see how he runs his own party, which isn't very well,
No.
do you really think he could run the country? Because I don't.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think he can make a decision worth a fag end.
No.
And also, the one thing he is famous for, when you talk about his great coronavirus strategy, is having to self-isolate. He's had it three times now. He's had to self-isolate.
Is he out now, or is he still isolating?
Well, I think he's back to Prime Minister's questions tomorrow. I'm not sure. But the point is that, you know, he's either not obeying the rules properly, or he's a complete and utter plank because he keeps mixing with people who've got COVID.
Well, but all these people who are making the rules and telling us to stay home, stop slaughtering nurses on the front line, etc., 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 they're the ones getting COVID all the time.
Yeah. How does that work?
He should make a film, shouldn't he? Called
mean-
The Self-Isolator. My COVID is back.
Yeah, it really. If it wasn't so tragic, it would be hilarious.
Oh, you've got to have a laugh.
Go on, Dawn. Come
Right,
on.
okay.
It's your final
this is
one.
my third one. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is my final one. This is PETA. This is the people
yes.
ethical treatment of animals.
God bless them.
Oh, my hair's falling out. Any case,
Don't worry, there's still a few left.
it is COVID actually. No, it's probably bleach actually.
Yeah.
Any case, they have told people that they can't use insults like rat and pig as they are anti-animal slurs that degrade animals by applying negative human traits to certain species.
Yes.
So rather than calling someone a chicken, you have to call them a coward.
A coward?
A coward, yeah. And rather than using...
Doesn't have the same ring, does it?
No. And rather than saying, you know, rat,
Right.
you have to call them a snitch.
You dirty rat.
Snitch.
You dirty snitch.
You dirty snitch doesn't have
That
quite the same ring about it. So
Bad news for Jimmy
everything
Pagny.
animal related to that. So you can't be sheepish. You can't call someone who eats a lot of pig.
Right.
No, all
What
that's
about a
out.
dog?
You can't call people dog in any case.
That'd be all right.
No, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to Ian Collins interviewing this woman from PETA, or PETA, whichever way you say it.
Yeah, she's done it.
And it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard because she was actually she kind of was taking it quite well, but even you could tell she wasn't even that convinced by it.
No,
'Cause
well,
he was saying things like, so how do you know the animals are upset by this?
Exactly.
You know,
This
have
is the
you
point. I mean,
you
it's like
surveyed?
you know.
How many cows have you surveyed?
I'm going to stick up for Peter here because...
Yeah, but that's because you're an animal rights
I know.
activist.
Yeah, but because your dogs are around the country soon.
I think what they're talking about is not that the animals will be upset, but if we use animals as derogatory terms, it will influence the way we think about animals.
That's
We will
rubbish,
treat
though.
That's
them
rubbish.
It's
Of course it
absolute
does.
Well,
No.
that's the reason.
Yeah,
they're
but you're
saying
surely not going to
they're
sit
not
there.
suggesting
Bloody
animals get upset.
snowflake,
I know.
honestly.
Excuse me, they are not suggesting animals get upset.
Yes,
by
they
these
are.
things.
They said
no,
you
they're
can't.
Not. No,
Well,
they're not.
You're
They're
degrading
not.
animals.
They're saying it flavours the way we think
Yeah,
about
but listen,
animals.
I can't remember the last time I called anybody a rat or
Me
a cow
neither.
I
or
don't
a
think they're the
dog.
greatest organisation in the world, but they're not complete idiots. I don't think.
Well, I think they
some-
are actually
be-
completely.
Do you really could use me, a rat, as a derogatory term? Oh, that was really
Yeah, but
upset
that's
me as a
what.
rat.
Yeah, but that's what we do to make fun of them, to try and point out to them that actually they should keep their mouths shut on things like this
To be-
because
they do-
Yeah, I agree. It's not the greatest
It's not
idea.
a great
to come
idea.
in with it, yeah.
I
They
mean-
do have a little tiny bit of a sense of humour as
Right.
well, because they do some of this stuff tongue in cheek because it gets people.
It gets
some
publicity, yes,
it
and
gets
that's
us talking
fine.
about
This one's
them,
worked.
and we'll
Yeah.
have to go and hug an animal or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, it is like Winter Watch is in trouble.
well, it is.
I mean,
and what about Back to the Future when they keep doing that chicken noise with
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox? You know,
Yeah.
when you chicken,
Yeah.
you know, and they do
Well,
it all the way
so
through
why
the
is
film.
Winter Watch in trouble?
Well, all the beavers and the tits and the cocks and things they use in that, you can't. They make jokes about them all the time, Kev. You really need to
Well, they
watch
do
it.
the double entendre thing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so you can't do
You
that
can't
anymore,
do that
can you?
anymore in
'Cause
case
they
the
didn't
animals
say
get
that.
upset.
Well, what
That's
she
not
said-
derogatory, though, is it?
Well,
it
yes,
could be.
is.
Well, no, they didn't say that.
What?
They said that you shouldn't use animals as a
Well,
derogatory
you're
term.
laughing. You're
Yeah, but if
taking
you're
it
laughing,
out.
but if you're
that's not
well, if you're
derogatory.
laughing at the
humiliating
yeah, but if
animals,
you're
Kevin.
laughing at the use of the word tit, that means you see a bird as a ridiculous form of animal, and you basically see them as a creature of fun or a figure of
Do
idiocy.
you know the first time women were called birds?
When?
The first reference to it was in Beowulf, the very first text in Anglo-Saxon English.
Is it?
The very
Right.
first thing ever
Okay.
written in
Okay.
English referred to women as birds, and no one knows why.
Why?
Really?
Why?
No one
Well,
knows
he said
why.
no one knows why. Well, he just said no
I
one
want
knows
to
why.
know.
Well, why don't you ask Peter? Maybe
Well,
they'll know. Where did this come from? But I mean, here's the other thing. If they say that you shouldn't do it, because what they're actually trying to educate people into, which I think is insidious and rather sinister, is to try and stop people eating meat. Now, that's none of their business, what we do. Now, they can try and influence us, but they shouldn't be saying, for example, one of the things this woman said was if you call somebody a pig, a filthy pig, that means that you're insinuating that pigs are filthy. Whereas in fact they're very intelligent creatures. Well, they are intelligent creatures,
Yeah,
but
they
they're
do
also
live in
quite
mud.
dirty.
Yeah, they live in mud.
And apparently, according to Peter, if you think of pigs as filthy, you're more likely to eat them.
Well, no, the other way round, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And she also said,
Don't eat
but if
filthy
you
pork.
think they're intelligent, you won't want to eat them. Well, why not? They still taste the same. I don't care how intelligent the pig is. I don't go to the butchers in Borough Market and go, look, I don't want those sausages. I don't think they come from a very intelligent
Delicious
pig.
steak, that must have been a clever
Here's what I want. I want an intelligent pig to make some bacon from.
How intellectual was this
Yeah,
cow before
has
I buy this
you know,
steak?
has this cow
Did he go to
recited
university?
Edgar Allan Poe at any point just before it was slaughtered with an electric hammer?
And because can I just give the Law Society an honourable mention
Yes,
in
please.
this while we're wandering down this particular road, because they've also issued an ultimatum this week saying that we shouldn't shorten people's names, our work colleagues' names, in case they get offended.
What?
So I now have to address you as Michael
Right.
and you as Kevin.
Well, what if I've shortened it though to Mike?
Well, but I have to ask first how you would like to be addressed.
Right. How would you?
Don't ask me how I'm going to address you, because that's going to be dangerous.
How would you misappropriate, say, Dawn though? You can't really shorten that, can you?
No, people always, because my parents deliberately gave me a name that couldn't be shortened, so people lengthen it.
But it's like people who've discovered, not that it's a great secret, that my first actual name is Archibald. And when they think they want to annoy me on Twitter, the reason it's funny to you is because it's not a normal sounding name. But actually in Scotland, loads of people are called Archie.
Archie, yeah.
It's a very common name, right? And it was
His
the
dad's name,
firstborn.
right? Yeah.
It was my dad's name, and it was the firstborn son of the firstborn son who kept being called Archibald. So my mother agreed on the grounds that it would never be used, and it would just be I would always be called Michael. But it's my first name. But people think I'm annoyed if they call me, like if they're trying to get at me at Twitter, they call me Archie, and I'm like, okay, I'm still waiting for the the
one of
insult.
those in California
And actually now it's quite a trendy name.
It's quite trendy,
I mean,
obviously,
well,
because
Megan,
of, baby Archie. But it also sounds to make you sound sort of like, quite
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Much
That's
more
the other reason.
interesting than you
That's the other
actually
reason I
are.
don't use it, obviously. But I mean, listen. I think Peter's a very good one. The Law Society can be sort of tagged on at the end.
Been a pig of the year, isn't it, Kev?
Yeah.
It has been a right old dog.
Yeah, I
Tell
hate
you
those
what.
rats who say that.
It's like rats leaving a sinking ship. Is that
Bunch
allowed?
of
Do you
dogs.
say that?
You don't have to
Anyway,
be that sheepish about it, Kev.
yeah. It's bad news also for
Stop
buffalo
that.
mozzarella, isn't it? What about that? Are you allowed to say
Yeah.
that anymore? Buffalo mozzarella?
Probably not.
Well,
I mean, it does come from buffaloes,
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
not derogatory, is it?
isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, it might be.
You said a cheese.
How dare you call that cheese buffalo?
Yeah. Anyway, that's
Maybe
enough
the
of that.
cheese would be offended.
That's butter, cheese, covered.
Yeah,
what
yeah,
else?
with this
I'm going to go back to
culinary
politics.
special.
I'm going to go back to politics, and my final nominee is actually the European Union.
Now,
Now, obviously, you covered a fair bit of
You
this
win, yeah.
with Nicola Sturgeon
Yeah.
because of her reaction to what happened last week, not just when this vaccine nationalism first got mentioned by the EU and Ursula von der Leyen, as we like to call her, but I was incredibly gobsmacked more than ever on Friday night when we realised that the European Union was not only trying to tell us that they weren't going to give us any vaccines, but they tried to put into Northern Ireland a hard border with the Republic,
which is the one thing
which
they
is the
always
one thing
said.
they've told us we could
I
never
know,
do.
I know.
And then
that
within
was astonishing.
an hour of them doing it, it was rescinded.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't. I was busy
I couldn't
doing
believe
stuff at
that.
home.
Who could?
And I suddenly found that all of this had happened in the space of an hour. I was going, what's going on? This is incredible.
Wasn't there excuses like, oh, we didn't understand what it meant?
Well,
Yeah.
no, they said
What?
they said it was an administrative error.
Yeah, right.
Was it hell?
I think
Oh
it
my
was
was it
God.
hell?
an administrative error putting her in charge of anything.
Yeah, it was just a really bad error for giving her that job.
And also, what they've now managed to do is completely undermine the communities in Northern Ireland who they've been trying for so long to make sure are okay. I mean, Michael Gove, who you mentioned earlier, has made a statement today saying that there's a bit of unrest in parts of Northern Ireland where we'd really rather not like to see it because of this European Union action. They've also upset almost every other European country because they're all saying, well, we need more vaccinations than you're prepared to give us. And I mean, they've just completely shot themselves in the foot.
As was said about Ursula von der Leyen, she pulled off an absolutely amazing feat. In one fell swoop, she managed to unify the UDP, the DUP,
Yeah.
Sinn Féin,
Yeah.
Tony Blair,
Yeah.
Boris Johnson,
Yeah, it was quite a thing.
Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
managed to unify all
Yeah.
these sworn enemies
Yeah.
who just descended on her like a pack of wolves and just said, "You cannot do that." And that's what shocked her into U-turn.
How can they ever come back from
I
this?
don't think they
I
can.
don't understand.
Well,
how
do you know,
they
I think it's
can.
going to get a lot worse as well, because once they do start to roll out the vaccine properly, there's going to be all sorts of rows between countries as to who gets what. and some countries are going to be ordering more independently, which they're not supposed to do. It's all supposed to go through the European Medicines Agency. It's going to be chaos, carnage.
No wonder the Dutch are rioting every night. They wanted to order the AstraZeneca vaccine the same time
and they
as
were
us,
told
and they
couldn't.
stopped.
Yeah,
So
I
did
know.
Germany, so did France.
And they're all now having a go, saying that this European Union business is a complete and utter shambles. And in fact, they already started saying that before they did this thing, because of the way that they've been so useless.
I think what it's proved, this saga, it reminds you of lots of other moments in EU history. First and foremost, the EU is useless. It's just useless. A massive,
and this has proved it. This has exposed
This
it.
has really exposed it. Even if you're Romania thinking now, well, hold on a minute.
Well, as Kevin says, once Tony Blair's thrown the EU under the bus, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Federalism is an impossible dream. It goes against human nature. People want to. You look to yourself. You want to look after yourself. You want to look after your neighbour. To be told this vague concept, look after the whole world. It just doesn't work.
Well, the World Health Organization gets an honorary mention as well, actually, because they put out a tweet suggesting that when we finished vaccinating the vulnerable in this country, we should basically stop vaccinating everybody else and let the rest of the world catch up.
Really? Really? That's not happening in my world.
That is not
I'm sorry.
happening.
We ordered in time, we paid up front, we've done nothing wrong at all. We need to get everybody in this country vaccinated.
I mean, can you imagine the noises that would be coming from the Ramonas
if it was the other way around?
And we weren't getting enough vaccinations?
The way it's going, by the way, it looks like we're going to finish our vaccine programme in May.
Really?
The whole country we're talking about, which is amazing.
That is amazing,
brilliant, isn't it?
Well, let's hope that they follow.
About it, 10 million,
well, let's hope that they
6 times
follow that up with opening the pubs. I could do with a beer.
This afternoon would be good.
Right now.
now.
Right now. Open them now.
Yeah. So that's the 9. We have. You know what you have to do now.
That flew past.
Now what you have to do now. The last time around, I think Kevin chose mine. So why doesn't Kevin choose yours this time?
Okay.
So you give him your 3.
Right. Mine was Petter. It was Prince.
You know I'm not going for that.
I might actually force him. It was Petter, and that's your only option.
I should do, just to be contradictory.
It's going to be Petter, Prince Harry, or Sadiq Khan.
Well.
I think I'm going to go for...
Go on, Petter. We know you want to say Petter. Go on.
I'm going to go for Sadiq Khan, mainly on what you said about spending money to establish the obvious, that London has suffered somewhat.
Yeah, a bit empty.
During the lockdown. Who knew?
Yeah.
Thank God we spent millions.
The only thing it's full of is people
also,
working for Sadiq Khan.
But also for acting as if nothing has happened, even though a High Court judge has ruled his cycle lane takeover, his land grab in London, unlawful.
Yeah.
But he's done nothing, and he's got to start acting on it.
Yeah, I like that. Right, Kev, you can choose one of mine in that case.
Yep.
Mine are the EU, Sophia Collins and Angela Rayner.
Well, I think they're all very, very worthy contenders. I'd love to go for Angela Rayner, but given the week we've just been through...
Hold on. This is wrong, isn't it?
Why?
He chose one of mine just now.
Hey?
Oh, yeah. Did I? Yeah,
you
I
chose
that's
one of
right,
mine,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
why
that's
did you choose
right.
one of yours?
Yeah,
first?
you're absolutely
well,
right.
I didn't get to it, so you're on.
Yeah, well, lucky you didn't choose one.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank God she's here. I thought I'd changed the format of the show by accident.
Yeah.
All right.
completely
Well, you
ignoring
better
me.
choose mine.
Cutting Dawn out of
Do
the
you want
show.
to give them again?
Right.
Angela Rayner, the EU, and Sophia Collins. Who's she?
I know, but I mean, I'm so tempted to go for her, even though I
Well, it's very current,
because it is funny.
and it's not going to happen again. I
Is
don't
it
think.
funny?
I think so.
It's very, very funny. Yeah.
I think what's even funnier is that she's now blocked everybody from looking at it, because she obviously put it out thinking nobody's going to care about this.
I look, tempting as Angela Rayner is, and her first class travel, I'm going to go for the Butter Girl.
Yes, I think
I'm
that's
sorry,
a very good choice.
I'm sorry,
Sophia
Sophia,
Collins,
but
very good.
It was funny.
All right, now what do we do now? I choose his, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Maybe
Yeah.
we should just be in charge.
So
do like that, don't you?
mine were
Bleeding editors.
Michael Gove for practicing
Yes.
cancel culture on Desmond Swayne. Nicola Sturgeon for failing to clarify her position in apparently backing the EU when it was trying to stop 3.5 million vaccines getting here for the old and the vulnerable, including people in Scotland. When is she going to tell us what her position really was on that? and finally Keir Starmer for it, at every single turn, never really opposing Boris Johnson, but just saying if I was in charge, I'd have done it earlier and better.
Right. Well, I think it's got to be Nicola
Nicola
Sturgeon.
Sturgeon,
Not least because the
absolutely.
EU didn't quite make it into the final three, so we've got to keep some connection with the
Yeah.
EU. So I think,
she is.
so I think Nicola Sturgeon
Yeah.
definitely.
on every
Very,
level.
very worthy contender.
On every
I
level.
So it's Nicola Sturgeon, it's Sophia Collins, and which one did you pick of hers?
Petra, I think it was.
Was it Petter?
That was not Petter. It was Sadiq Khan.
Sadiq Khan. There you go. We nearly got
Oh,
it.
Nearly conned me
So
into it.
Sadiq Khan, Nicola Sturgeon, Sophia Collins. I would say, without fear or favour, that it's got to be Nicola, isn't it?
me
Yeah,
too.
I think so.
Number one.
I think so.
Look, yeah. I mean, I was going to nominate her as well, but we let him have it because he
Yeah.
has to win
Yeah,
something.
because you've had it the last couple of weeks. We can't keep giving you the winners.
Right,
The
Nicola
ladies first
Sturgeon.
only goes so
It's
So
far.
just
should
you
we
know.
my
go
talent
with,
for picking planks.
So let's go with Sophia Collins for number 2 then, because I think she
Because
deserves
it's
it.
different as well. And we
Yeah.
did actually talk about
Yeah.
butter for half an hour.
Exactly right. So,
Butter
in that
made
case,
them
in
have
third place, Sadiq Khan. Second place, Sophia Collins. Nicola Sturgeon, you win Plank of the Week. Well done, Nicola.
Well done,
Well
Nick.
done,
Thank you
Nicola.
very much
Always
indeed.
a worthy winner.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Dawn and Kevin, thank you as ever. We'll see you next week.